welcome back to the Vulnerable Woman podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our previous episodes. Thanks for joining us today. The Vulnerable Woman is about just letting down your guard with other people and with God. So hit the button, subscribe, go like our Instagram page, and we're just going to jump right in today. So this is going to kind of wrap it up for me. You guys will be done with my story finally. There are lots of little things that I've talked about, and some little things I didn't talk about because they're just, yes, they're a big deal, but I wanted to really hit the main points in my life. But before I do that, I keep forgetting that I want to introduce someone on this podcast that is so important that you guys don't see, but he's here with me every single time, every day. And I'm going to butcher his last name as I say it, so he can correct me. So this is my friend, Zay. I'm gonna let you just say it. Say your last name.
Orozco.
Yeah, if I try to say that, it's gonna sound so Mississippi and you guys are gonna make me Orozco. Did I do it? Yes. But it has the Mississippi twang in it, yeah? But I could not sit in this seat if it was not for my friend. And I'm so blessed and so thankful. And if you guys are ever interested, he has his own website.
Orozco Film Co.
There you go. Go like his Instagram page. See, I'm just going to make him say it the whole time because I'm just terrible. Good thing I never took Spanish in high school. I would have failed. But go like his Instagram page because, again, without him, I would not be sitting here today. And I'm so blessed. I'm blessed to call him and his family our friends. And they're just wonderful people. And I hope you get to meet them as well. But I'm just very, very blessed that he has joined me on this journey. All right, so let's jump back in. So I just kind of want to conclude. And I know one big question you guys probably really have burning on your minds is, Tara, why in the world did you decide to do a podcast? Well, that is a great question. And I'm going to tell you, I battled with God for 2.5 months over this. I had kind of hit a time where I had lost my job, and I was very hurt at that time from that. And now looking back, it was actually a blessing because if that had not happened to me, I would not be sitting here today. You know, it's amazing. God will do things sometimes to get your attention. And I think God was trying to get my attention because I can tell you right now, I don't know that I would think, oh, let's do a podcast if I was still working right now. So that's kind of where that jumped in. My husband had taken me to Best Buy to get a computer, so I could update my resume and all those fun things. And so we were walking through Best Buy. We pick out a computer and I said, hey, I just want to get a mouse because I don't like using the mouse pad. He said, all right. So I asked the guy what aisle they're on. And we're walking out of Best Buy and I stopped Jeremy. I'm like, oh, come here. And he's like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, what are these right here? And I go, oh, wait. I know what those are. I said, those are microphones for a podcast. And so we're walking out and I go, ooh, I know what I can do. I can start a podcast, which I was totally kidding, guys. It was seriously a joke. And we just kind of laughed and on we went, right? So I was applying for jobs and things, but nothing was just really coming up. And I was talking to a friend of mine who had kind of gone through the journey of she had left a full-time corporate job and she decided that she wanted to do something that was going to help women. And that has always been my heart. And so I went with her she came over for coffee. And I just asked her to kind of share with me her journey. And she did. And we were just talking and she was sharing a little bit of her story with me and she's like, oh, I'm just so glad I talked to you. And I don't know what made me, kind of open up like that. And I just kind of laughed and I was like, yeah, I was thinking I should just maybe start a podcast. And she goes, oh, you totally should. And I looked at her, I said, that is not happening. I promise you that's not going to happen. I said, number one, I don't even listen to podcasts. Number two, I said, I don't even know where to begin. So I said, that's just not even a thing. She's like, well, you could just research it. There's so much stuff on the internet, which she is right. There's a ton of stuff on the internet, right, to research and look up. But I'm like, dude, that is not even an idea for me. And I just kind of, again, I set it aside. And then I had a couple of other close friends who I had told the story to, and they're like, yeah, do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it. And one day I was on my couch and I had laid down for a little bit. I was watching some kind of TV show and I was just laying there and I was kind of dozing in and out and I just kind of was half asleep and I could hear the TV in the background and I just felt this huge nudge from God. And when I say a huge nudge, I mean, it freaked me out. I'm just going to be frank. I just felt a nudge to start a podcast and call it The Vulnerable Woman. Now, I will tell you this, I would not have came up with this name on my own. If you know me, I am not creative. Zay over here has to push me on my Instagram page to be creative. It's just not my thing. Now, you put me in an administrative role and I'm your girl, but you put me in a creative role and like I am deer in headlights, right? So coming up with that name, that did not pop off my head. I can promise you that. That was totally a God thing. But I thought for sure, I'm like, I'm just crazy. I think like I'm bored because I've worked my whole life. In my head, I'm just like coming up. I'm just pulling this out of thin air. And I thought to myself, I'm like, surely if anybody's going to tell me I'm crazy, my husband will. That is one thing I can count on. He is always honest with me. And if he says something is crazy, I'm like, yep, it's crazy. You're right. So I went and I kind of held on to it for a few weeks because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, when I tell him this, he's really going to think I'm nuts. Like I married a crazy person. So we were sitting down one day and I was like, babe, I have something to tell you. And I was real like hesitant and I could see his eyes like, oh my gosh, like what is she about to say? I'm sure ladies, if you're married and you go to your husband, I have something to tell you. The men are always just about in a panic. What is she about to tell me? What is she about to shock me with? So I said, well, and I kind of told him the story. And I just said, I think I'm supposed to call it The Vulnerable Woman. And he goes, okay, then do it. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. It's funny. I think I have told God in several different stories that I have shared with you guys on this podcast. I think I've told God a lot that I'm not doing it. Well, guess what? I wound up doing all the things, okay? So don't tell God you're not going to do it because he's going to have you do it. Just get ready. God likes to put us in uncomfortable situations. He really does. He's really going to test your comfort level. Think about Moses. When he pulled him and said, hey, you're going to go set my people free. Moses was probably like, what in the world are you talking about? Right? He probably thought he was crazy. I know if I saw a burning bush talking to me, I'd be like, oh, it's official. I've lost my mind. Right? So I can guarantee you, Moses, I'm sure thought he was crazy. Right? So I just told him, I said, babe, I don't even know how to do a podcast. I said, I know nothing about it. I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to begin. He goes, I know who could help you. And of course, he mentioned Zay here. And I thought, babe, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ask Zay. I said, he has enough on his plate. He is plenty busy. I said, I'm not going to ask him. No, not doing it. And then, of course, God. He always jumps in. I was sitting there talking to Zay's wife, and she asked me, she says, how's the job hunt going? I was like, well, it's going. And I said, I don't know. She's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, you're probably going to laugh at me. And she goes, oh, come on, tell me. I said, no, I'm not going to tell you. She goes, oh, come on, tell me. I said, okay. But I said, you have to promise you won't laugh. And I said, I think I'm supposed to start a podcast. And she got all excited and she was like, oh, I love that idea. You should totally. She goes, I know who you should talk to. And I said, who? And she goes, Zay's always wanted to do a podcast. Well, Bree and Zay are married, right? So I'm like, oh, Bree. I said, I am not going to bother Zay with that. I said, he has so much going on. And I said, I just don't know. I don't know. Well, Jeremy and Bree, being who they are, they wound up kind of forcing me to talk to Zay. And one day I got a little tap on my shoulder. Hey, I hear you need to talk to me about something. So Zay and I wound up chatting, and long story short, here we are today. And I say that to you because don't doubt something that God has for you, because something that you may be uncomfortable with may be the exact place that God is placing you in. Don't be afraid of it. I was afraid. I think the first time that we did our very first episode, I wanted to pick up the phone and cancel. I'm not even going to lie to you. I thought I was going to be sick because I'm like, there is no way I can do this. I am more comfortable getting up talking in front of people that are right in front of me than I am a camera. because I can actually see those people. I can't see you guys. But this is the spot that God has put me in for this time. And sometimes God puts us in a spot of being uncomfortable to really show us his heart and his will for us. And I've talked about a lot of places where I've been uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me to share some of those things. And there are probably going to be people who come and sit and talk that are going to be uncomfortable. Being vulnerable is hard, guys. It is not an easy task. So don't think it was easy for me just to get up and share all these things for you, especially to have something that recorded that's out there forever, right? That's a scary thing. But sometimes scary is what pushes us closer to God. Because when we're scared, where do we want to run? We want to run to God, right? He wants to show us his way and he wants to show us his will. You know, if I would not have lost my job, I don't know that I would have heard that. I don't know that I really would have gone this route. It opened up so many doors for me in my heart. It helped me to forgive people that I needed to forgive. It's brought me to this place. It's given me opportunities to help in places in my church that I wouldn't have had time for before. There's just so many things that God will give to you that are just so beautiful. Use time, use opportunities to give your gift, whatever you think it may be, or even if you don't think it's your gift, go out and give it a try. And hey, if it doesn't work, that's okay. That's okay. So sometimes, you can't have success without failure. That is probably the best saying that I've ever heard. Think of all like the great people in the world. One that comes to mind right away is Abraham Lincoln. He was one, I can't remember how many times that he ran for president and lost, right? But now he's known as one of the greatest presidents. And these pieces of information I think I got from a book somewhere that I read, but another one is Walt Disney. I think they said he was fired from a newspaper because they said he didn't have a creative mind. Now think if these people would have stopped at that, when that person told them, Walt Disney, you're not creative, there'd be no Disney World, right? Or if they would have told Abraham Lincoln the times that he lost and he just gave up because he was discouraged, right? We wouldn't have that great president, and segregation might still be here today if it weren't for him, right? There's just so many things that God can do through you, and maybe the first time it doesn't go well, maybe the second time, but if you really feel like it is something from God, go for it, go after it, don't be afraid. Or better yet, as I've heard a great person say, go and do it afraid, right? I've heard the acronym, what is fear? False evidence appearing real, right? And that's what the devil likes to do. He likes to place fear inside our hearts so we don't go after the things that God has for us. You never know what can happen when you step out in faith, right? And you know what? People are going to judge you. That is one thing I'm going to tell you. If you're looking to live a judgment-free life, that's not going to happen. It's not, because people are going to judge you for your choices. But one thing that I will tell you is when you get in that place, right, where you're trying to step out or do whatever it is you feel in your heart to do, sometimes you will find out who your real friends are. Who are the people that stand beside you and support you, and then who are the people that walk away? God can weed those people out, and sometimes he does that. He will weed people out of your life, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you don't care about them. You can still care about them, right? But God sometimes will protect us from things that we don't even realize. There is this picture, and I'll try to give it to Zay to put up so you guys can see it. So a little tidbit about me is I grew up, I love rodeos. I grew up, I used to show horses. I did it till I think I was 17, 18 years old. That was what I did on the weekends. I used to be a cowgirl. And to this day, I still love going to the rodeo. I love watching rodeos with my dad when I go home. That's kind of one of our little things that we do together. It's just one of my favorite pastimes. And there's this bullfighter that I follow online. His name is Dusty Tuckness, and he is a follower of Jesus. And I just have so much respect. I've never met him, but I just follow him on Instagram. He's at the Houston Rodeo a lot. And he just has such a love for Christ. And I was watching this testimony that he was giving, I think it was like on YouTube or somewhere. And it's this picture where there's the bull And then there's him, and he's got his hand out like this, kind of pushing the bull back, right? And then the cowboy is behind him, kind of underneath him, right? So he's standing in between the cowboy and the bull, right? That is what God is doing for you sometimes, and you don't even realize. He's standing and he's protecting you, and he's pushing that thing that doesn't need to be in your life away, and he is protecting you. He is putting himself in the middle of what could be a bad situation, right? And the way that he phrased it when he showed the pictures, he said, I'm standing in the gap. God is standing in the gap for you. Realize that. And I know sometimes we get frustrated. I know I do. I'm famous for this. I get frustrated when I don't get the answer that I want, or I get frustrated when I don't get it in the timing that I want. That's a big one for me. But I have to set my expectations aside and know that God has it all under control. He does. He has it all under control, and everything happens for a reason, right? And we may not like it. Growing does not always feel great. Growing pains are not fun sometimes. They're not, and they're hurtful. Sometimes there's hurt experienced through growing pains, but after you get through that growth, what God has out there is so much more beautiful than what you have planned for yourself. And I want to encourage you in that today. I don't know what struggle that you're battling right now, okay? I don't know what you're trying to achieve right now. But what I do know is that God's got you. He's got you from beginning to the end. And if it seems like something isn't working out, pray about it. Maybe God is leading you in a different direction. I don't know what's going to happen for me from this point forward. I don't know, but I'm trying to be obedient in this moment. Just be obedient to what he's asking you to do. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be obedient. And I hope and I pray that if one person for me, just one, is changed through something that I share here, it is worth it for me. That's it. I'm good with that. I'm happy with that. I hope it's more than one, right? We all do. But if it is just one, I am so thankful for that. And I want you guys to know that I'm thankful for you. And I pray for you guys every day. I don't know each of your individual names. Some of you I know and some of you I don't. But no, when I say I am praying for you, I'm not just telling you that. I am praying for you. Before my podcast airs at 6:30 on Tuesdays, I pray for you that you will have an open heart and that God will guide you with whatever you're going through. And again, I encourage you, if you are going through something and you want to share, send us a DM on Instagram. We want to walk alongside you and pray for you. And if you don't live in the area where we live, we will point you in a direction to where you can find someone to walk alongside you. This is where I really encourage small groups. And I'm going to tell you this, I have not always been a small group lover. Okay. Jeremy and I led a small group way years ago. And then kind of after that, we just didn't go anymore. And when we came to our church here, they really encouraged small groups. And so some friends of ours were leading one and we went. And I remember the first couple of times I went, I'm like, oh my word, like, But let me tell you something. This small group, my small group to this day, they become like family. They really do. They become like family. You go in and they have, it's a rule of having confidentiality. In other words, when you go in there and you share something deep that you're going through, it stays there. You know, kind of like the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what happens in your small group stays in there, right? What you share in your small group, it stays there. So people don't go out and gossip, right? So I encourage you, if your church has a small group, I really encourage you to get involved because I'll tell you what, as much as I avoided them for years, now I'm so thankful for them because when I lost my job, they were right there walking beside me and praying for me and checking on me. I was getting text messages, how are you doing? What can I do, right? You need that in your life. Go in there and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Will it be hard at first? Absolutely. But the more you go and the more you get to know people, you will build a camaraderie and a friendship that you've never had before. And I encourage that for you. So I'm going to end it just with this scripture. It's Deuteronomy 31, 6 through 8. It says, and I'm reading this one from the New Living Translations. I like to look at the different versions depending on how it reads. And I really loved what the New Living said. So be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid and do not panic before them. For the Lord our God will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Then Moses called Joshua and hold on, guys. I got to get my glasses. I had them sitting here and then I forgot. Okay, sorry. Then Moses called Joshua, and as all Israel watched, he said to them, be strong and courageous, for you will lead these people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors he would give them. You are the one who will divide it among them as their grants of land. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Just in this scripture right here, I think he says about 3 times, be strong and courageous. And then he says about 2 more times the Lord will go ahead of you. He will not abandon you. He will not abandon you. Well, Tara, that's in the Old Testament. That doesn't matter, right? That is the same God we still serve today. And if he told Moses he wouldn't abandon him, he sure isn't going to abandon us. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I would not have wanted to be Moses in that moment. To go before Pharaoh and say, hey, let my people go. Well, why? Well, God said so, right? And then he had to do these miracles where he threw down his staff and it turned into a serpent, right? All the miracles that he did. And he really had to put his faith in God and know that those were going to happen, right? Because if God came to me and said, hey, throw your glasses down, it's going to turn into a snake, I'd be like, first of all, I don't like snakes and no thanks, right? So I just think Moses was so brave and he was so courageous. Was he scared? No doubt. When I want to say it's in Exodus, when you first kind of start reading about Moses and how God calls him, he keeps kind of battling back with God and God gets mad at him. And that's where he says, okay, fine, I'll send your brother Aaron, because he kept telling God, God, I can't do this. I don't have good speech, right? That's what he kept telling God. Don't send me. There's got to be someone better. Right? And God got a little frustrated with him. He's like, no, I have chosen you, but I will send your brother. And you know, I almost wonder, and I do not know this for a fact, I wonder if at that time, if Moses even knew he had a brother. Because you have to remember, he grew up as an Egyptian, right? And then he went into, and he met his wife and he was living with his wife and his father-in-law. So I kind of almost wonder if that was the first time he knew that he even had a brother, right? Because for a long time, he didn't even know that he was a Hebrew, right? And so now he's going to send his brother along to come and help him. So Moses was very afraid. So I encourage you, whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is your battle, go through it. If you're afraid, do it afraid, right? Go for it. Go out there and battle whatever it is. But I'm going to tell you, the best way to battle is on your knees. And I'm sure you've heard that saying, but it's so true. Yes, I believe on your knees, but one thing that really works for me is when I get on my face, on the ground, and I really get before God, and I say, God, here I am. Show me what you want to show me. Ask him to show you what he wants to show you. He loves you. I tell you I love you, but he loves you so much more. The Bible says he knows the number of hairs on your head. Now, I know my kids pretty well, but I don't know how many hairs are on their head. I've never sat down and counted, right? Like that would take quite a while. But I want to encourage that for you today, guys. I hope you'll come back next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Just remember, let down your guard and be vulnerable. We love you.